All right. Welcome to the God's Business Podcast. My name is Jonathan. I'm your host. And today I'm joined with Clarissa from Clarissa's Kitchen. She is in South Carolina. She is a owner operator of a catering facility as well as catering service to bring some amazing good food to the community at large. She's known for many things about her recipes and her food. And Clarissa, we're going to embark on a journey, and thank you again for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for those of you who may not know, and for you, Clarissa, I bring entrepreneurs on the podcast to talk about how God works in their life and in their business. So for myself and maybe anyone who, is watching, I did a brief intro, but could you help me and everyone understand, more about you and your business and what are you doing today?
Okay, well, as Jonathan stated, I'm Clarissa Munford, owner of Clarissa's Kitchen and Catering Service, LLC, here in Irmo, South Carolina, which is right outside of Columbia, South Carolina. Currently, I do run a full service catering business for the Columbia area and surrounding areas, I guess, and sometimes out of the state. We try to stay within the state, though, as much as we can, but you know how that is. Sometimes the demand will take us outside of the state. Like I said, just basically a full service catering company where we specialize in corporate catering and weddings. And we are government contractors, so we do dibble and dabble a little bit in that area as well. So that's pretty much what we do. You name it, we can make it, and we're big on presentation and all that good stuff, and the things that people love that have shaped our reputation in this community. That we bring, quality service to what we do. I'm an Army veteran, so I do instill my Army values and everything that I do. And I try to do it with integrity, professionalism, and all that good stuff. And I think because of that, we built trust. Clients trust us. They consistently call us back. And like I said, we're not perfect. So if we make a mistake, we know how to recover it and get things back to where they need to be.
Nice. That's awesome. So, okay, I'm super curious now, right? So you said you're an Army veteran. Yeah, you didn't have this business while you were in the Army, correct?
No.
Okay. Can you tell me the story? Like, did you go to the Army right out of high school, right out of college, or how did that sort of enter into all this?
All right. I actually went to college for 1 year and I
Okay.
didn't do much with that first year, Jonathan. I partied more than I think studied.
Like
And
most.
And I joined the United States Army. Once I joined the Army, I actually joined the Army and became a medical technologist. So I was actually in the medical field. So I didn't do anything really related to what I'm doing now. But what I did do, we have a lot of barbecues and events in the Army. So I just found myself always cooking stuff. And it was like, and I grew up, with a phenomenal mom. She was an amazing chef. So I knew it was in me and I enjoyed watching her do it and doing it. So after I joined the Army, a lot of my fellow soldiers and comrades they love food. And I just seemed like I loved cooking for them. And I was like, I would just continue to cook all the time. It's almost every weekend we were having something. And I would just cook, for fun, never ever thought I'll be a full blown catering company actually, serving people and selling food, so to speak. Although they always told me that. So I think it's true that sometimes when people speak things into existence, it will manifest because all our friends and family would speak that into existence. I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. And eventually, and it was later, of course, I joined the Army in 2002 and it wasn't too, I got out in 2002 actually. So I would say after 10 years, I was in for about 10 years and probably I got out in 2002. So it actually wasn't until about 2010 that I actually got serious about this catering thing.
Okay. So you've been doing it for 2000, that's about 16 years now.
Right. Right.
Wow. That's exciting. And I guess what was your main staple that you when at the barbecues or everyone was like, "Oh, we really love this. Can you make it every time?"
It was potato salad. I'm gonna tell you what it was, Dominic. And I was so sick of making potato salad. I didn't know what to do, but it was definitely potato salad and baked beans. And between those two, they couldn't seem to get enough of
Okay.
two of them. Because the
It-
men would always do the barbecue and stuff like that. So I wasn't like no big griller or anything, even though we have a pretty nice barbecue menu now on our, catering menu, but it was definitely the sides. And I think that's the big thing for a lot of people, even myself, if I go to a restaurant, even if it's a barbecue restaurant, I'm not a big barbecue person, but I notice that I'm a sides person. And if you got good size,
Okay.
I can work with your meat, but when your size suck, I'm not your girl at all. I'm just like, I'm good on that. Because I'm not a big meat eater either.
Mm.
Like my husband, he's a big meat eater. I don't think he care what the size tastes like. But me, yeah, I'm gonna need your size to. They need to hit.
I mean, it puts the meal together. The side a good side will put it together.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and that's cool. So you went to the army. You graduated from the army, or left the army, retired from the army as a veteran, and then shortly after that, you started the catering itself. When did that start? Like you were starting just like from your house, or taking orders, or like how did
Yep,
that sort of?
absolutely. This good old fashioned way, right there in my kitchen, which is probably hence how I came up with the name because I was literally in my kitchen and just doing little stuff, letting people try the food, just trying to get a feel for things, doing a little bit of meal prep. And so nothing too major in the beginning from the kitchen. It was more like dinners for a family and things like that, just kind of seeing what's out there. And then eventually it started birthing into a little bit more. And I was like, okay, I need to get a space, so that's when the rentals and all that stuff came into play. And after a while, I was like, I need my own place. And, of course, eventually we'll talk about that later, where, I came about that space. Basically, I was still working though. Like you said, I was working in the hospital. I was a medical technologist by trade, had a master's in science. So I was operating, under that good stuff. I was doing the catering on the side a little bit at the time, probably about one a week, just to kind of stay relevant and see if this is something I really want to do. And eventually it just took off. People, I just like, oh wow, this is it. I'm operating in my gift, I'm like, this is it, I was in prayer about it and stuff like that. And I knew that I felt the pull. So I knew that God was pulling me and making me uncomfortable on the job, so to speak. And so it was one of those things like when you start getting uncomfortable, you're not where you still need to be. And I felt that pull. And then I started getting prophecies from, women of God and men of God, that were just telling me God's going to make room for your gift. And it was just like, wow. And, and he just started opening doors and it was amazing. It's really been amazing, the journey to where we are now, to where we started. He was always in the midst of it, always leading us, guiding us to make the best decision. And, and I'm just out there leaping out there on faith. It's no, people like step. No, I was straight leaping off mountains, so to speak. Ocean size faith, not none of that mustard seed stuff, definitely ocean size faith, just trusting God through it all. And he just kept coming with more and more and pushing me to be the best, do the best. And every time I had an idea, he was like, girl, bye. I got a better idea. And that's basically how it went.
Wow. So you said a few things there. So ocean-sized faith, and when you had an idea, God had a different plan for you. Can you give me an example of like where that was, what that was?
An example would be the building that we're in. When I realized that this thing was really going with or without me, it was like you're going, so we better get with it, so to speak. I realized that I was like, okay, God, I need my own space. I was doing a shared space, commissary kitchen, so to speak, and I was
Mm.
like, I got to get my own space because we're expanding, and I need space. And of course, my garage was full, Jonathan, and James is probably looking at me like, girl, what we doing here? We barely had anywhere to park the cars, So basically what happened is I just went in prayer about what I wanted. I knew what I wanted and I was like, okay, God, are we doing this? We're doing this. Give me about 1,500 square feet. Give me a little space. That's all I need is about space. He was like, forget it. Here's a building, it's 6,000 square feet.
No.
So it's always one of those things where I tell people he always wants more for us than we want for ourselves. I'm thinking small. He's thinking bigger always.
Wow.
Yep. Let me grab this.
Sure, sure. So it sounds like, you thought here, and then he thought, you needed more. Even though you didn't know how to fill it, you didn't know necessarily what you were going to do with it.
Right, right.
You know, and is that the space that you're in today?
That's the
Okay.
space that I'm in now. Moved into that space July of 2022, and that was the space that we looked at in 2018, I think it was, and it needed all this work. And 2019, I did a vision board, Jonathan. I put a picture of that building on my vision board. We prayed about it. I did vision boards with my two daughters, and all of us put our vision for our future, and that building that we own outright now. was on that board.
Wow. So you own the building now.
We own the building, correct.
Hey, all glory to God. That's amazing.
And
That's so cool. Okay. And you do a lot more things in that building. I know we've had conversations before and you were talking about like I think your annual event. Did did that happen or is that going to happen?
yeah. Well, yes. We actually do the annual master class that should be happening this Saturday. Of course, we're expecting snow, so we're gonna see how that goes. We also do the annual Mother's Day brunch there. So that's been going very well. This will be our third year and look like I'm not gonna get out of it, Jonathan. So look like it's happening because they're asking. And another event that we do, and we're not gonna be able to do it this year, is a Night of Love Valentine event. And that's
Okay.
pretty it was very popular and we did do it and we just really need to get back to it because we keep having calls about it. They're calling now because it's close to Valentine's Day, but we're not gonna really do it this year. Another event that we hosted was the Oktoberfest. And
Okay.
basically what it is, it's a community give back. So we don't charge anything, of course, for the space when we do these events. There's no charge for the space. It's just a charge for like the food or
Mm,
whatever, like if they come in and do, and then
sure.
like sometimes depending on the lady that hosts the Oktoberfest, the activities and things of that nature. So it's really a very inexpensive event for seniors and it's called
Mm,
Oktoberfest, and they come and they have an amazing time. They love it. They absolutely loved it, and I was like, okay, I got to do it again for them. So it's gonna be like an annual thing now. It's like I'll wrap myself into another annual event. So that's really what it's all about. And some of the community events that some people have approached me with. Few networking events. So the goal was to use the space more for event space, but it seemed like it's pivoting to something totally opposite. Even though we have had a few events in there, but for the most part, it seemed like the community events have definitely been more rewarding.
wow. Have you ever thought of yourself? It sounds like, I mean, food itself is a brings the community together. It brings people together, whether it's at the family, the dinner table, or in your case, it sounds like your space that you own and that you're operating in the community brings the community together. Is that? Have you ever thought yourself to do that?
Not really, but I wasn't surprised at all because I know food is ministry. It is definitely
Mm,
my ministry. So I've known that it's ministry through service, and I know that.
okay. Nice, nice. Talk to me. I guess what are your plans for the next like 5, 10 years? Like you've grown a lot in the last 16 years, right?
Right.
So you're 20. What does that look like?
Yeah. Probably looking myself, honestly, I was thinking I'm giving myself about another 3 or 4 years and I want to let someone else take the reins because I just feel like, I've gotten it where it needs to be. I've actually got a couple offers to franchise it. Not sure if that's something I want to do yet, Jonathan, but it's
Sure.
definitely something to consider. And I say that because there's a lot of catering companies out here but they just don't have the recognition that they probably can get. And we built this brand, and this would be a great brand for someone to come behind us and support. But at the same time, it's my baby, so I'm like, I don't want someone to come and mess up my brand. At the same
Mhm.
time, so it's one of those things like how much hands on am I able to provide, them with. So that's it's a couple of things I think about, but I know for us, eventually, we will hand them the reins to some of the younger. I say, generation because like I said, we want to enjoy life too, and
Okay.
and life is it's different now. Everyone's not living to be 100 years old and 80 years old, so we
Sure.
definitely want to make sure we're mindful
Mhm.
of seizing a moment. I feel like you work hard, you should play harder.
Okay.
That's my motto, and we travel a lot and we really enjoy traveling and things of
Mhm.
that nature. So we definitely want to make sure, those are things that we are still able to do.
Nice. I mean, it sounds like you're heading into a season of, reaping all the rewards that all the, crop and all the reputation and support that you provided to the community. And, whenever that happens, it sounds like, you'll leave it to God to help you decide at that point when that point is right.
Absolutely. Always putting them first. Always
That's
praying
good.
about, before we do things, just not out here on whim, making decisions, praying that he guides us and to make right decisions and good decisions, for the business and our family, because like I said, even for us, the business is not just about profit, it's about
Mhm.
legacy, leaving
Yeah.
that. to see for our children and future grandchildren, so we just, so we definitely want to make sure we always operating, with putting God first in everything we
Amen.
do to make sure we get the desired results.
I love that. And, I don't know if it went anywhere yet, but, just to ask, because I feel like I know, and maybe people would be interested, but you were featured on a television show, right? And you have a possible book coming. Is that something the legacy wise, you might be, leading down towards?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons I think I'm ready to kind of pivot a little bit. My hopes is once this book is released, the book is actually ready. We actually are just finalizing the pictures. So the cookbook is done. I'm excited about that. But it's just been a struggle with some of the pictures. We want to make sure they're authentic and the book is done in DC in order, and so I put the halt on a lot of it. So a lot of it's me. I think
It's
I
okay.
think, I believe I'm like I said, I'm a soldier first. One shot, one kill. And I believe if you're gonna do it, it should be done right the first time. And I don't believe in rushing. The Bible speaks of that. We have to be patient and be anxious for nothing. So I felt like the timing wasn't right. Talk with my family, my daughter, who's a big supporter of me. She's like, "No, mom, we can't release it like like this." She's 28, but she thinks she's my mom, and the 25-year-old thinks she's my mom as well. But both girls, amazing girls, and they wanted to see it successful. And one of the things I would like to see that book do, Jonathan, is go into some of the cooking classes at even some of the high schools. So I
Wow.
thought, I actually had a spoke with someone about that at one of the local high schools, and definitely I think something that would be amazing, and especially even on the college level in some of the culinary schools, because that'll get them purchased in bulk. You see what I'm saying? So we definitely want to
Yeah,
make sure we're hitting the right market with the books. I think timing is everything. So I'm not too
of
concerned
course.
about it. I've had people, you know about the you built the wait list
Yeah.
through your marketing for me. And I've had people like, when is the book? When is the book? Relax. It's coming.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I did have to pivot away from it just a little bit just to really get through 2025. I think I got really busy and crazy. But 2026, I'm excited. I'm expecting things to slow down a little bit, but I'm expecting some big things in 2026 as well. So that's going to give us the time we need to, focus on the book. And like I said, I want to be able to do book signings and do things like that. So I actually don't plan to do a ton of catering this year. Believe it or not, I plan for the catering to continue because I have a team where we'll still be able to continue some things. I personally don't plan to do a ton of catering,
Sure, sure.
because I do want to, when that book is released, I do want to promote that book. I really do.
Nice. And the title, is it the same, or are you able to say the title at least?
I say, yeah, oh, absolutely.
Or why don't you go ahead and it's your book, so why don't you go ahead and share the title?
The title is Battle Tested, Kitchen Approved: A
Aw
Soldier's Culinary Journey to Excellence.
Awesome. Yeah, if anybody who's watching that's interested in that book, there will be a link in the description below to join the wait list, or if you're watching when the book's available, to also
Absolutely.
purchase the book. So
Absolutely.
that's exciting. That's exciting. So you're really moving into a season of legacy and next steps. Can you to take a step back, right? You've told me a lot about your business, and it's been a journey. You've gone from being a soldier to being a caterer, to owning a catering hall, providing community events to bring people together and really help the community out, to leading to a legacy of a book, battle tested and kitchen approved, soldier's journey to culinary excellence. Like, there's a lot of things that you're doing. Can you help me understand now, like, how has your walk been, right? Have you always been in the faith? Have you always been, a believer of Jesus? And when did that sort of like start for you? Were you growing up in the church, or how'd that look?
Absolutely. I was raised in a Baptist church. So always, had that faith. I was after I graduated, went off to college. Like I said, after a year, I joined the army. And when I met my husband, I met him literally probably a year later. We got married, and we raised our kids in the church. Yes,
Wow.
always was in a church. Wherever we were stationed, we joined the church. Always, had that relationship. And we had to grow it. That because we were young, and as I got older and really started to, have that relationship and grow closer and understand God's presence in my life, I just held on to that. My faith keeps me humble, keeps me grateful. It keeps me focused, so it's like one of those things where, it gives me a peace, an understanding. So I've always had that faith, always trusted God to get us through whatever season we were in, and things of that nature. So absolutely, absolutely. This journey has had ups and downs, but it's been an amazing journey. It really has.
That's so good. And one of the reasons why I even have this podcast is I've been in business for a long time. I've recently been saved 2024, but before that, nobody really talks about the aspect of faith in business, right? Or the spiritual side of business. And you've been an entrepreneur for 16 plus years now. How would you say that faith has played a role in either starting, changing, pivoting, and building the business where it is today? And would you feel like you could do it without it?
Absolutely not. Definitely faith has played a important role because of the fact that, it's God's favor. That's what it is. Like I said, every time we do an event and we get a 5-star review on Google or someone come up to us and give us a testimony or allows us to record it and things of that nature. And, just the success we've seen and the accolades been given. We was City of Columbia Spotlight Business of the Year for 2024. And it was just an amazing spotlight because typically when they had done the spotlight previously, they did it. It was like 4 or 5 companies got spotlighted. But ironically, in the year we got spotlighted, we were the only one. So it was like he separates you, and in this thing that he does that no one else can do. We were separated from our peers, and it was like, hey, so I could be seen. It was like, this is going down and it's all about her this year. Nobody else. And, even I have a good friend, me and her, we're not only we're friends, but we business mentors. And me and her talking about it. She was like, wow, we were both at the conference the year before and we saw that it was at least 6, 7 companies and how they decided that only spotlight one that year. We were just like, wow. And it was me, you know, so it was amazing. It was amazing. And, I just appreciate that. And it was Office of Business Opportunity is one of our small business companies here in Columbia, South Carolina. They were just amazing, headed by Aisha Driggers and Kalina Dillier. And they're just amazing people. And it was just amazing that they chose me. It was humbling and I was very appreciative of the spotlight. And, just like, wow. And it just kind of just let me know that, hey, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're where you should be. And, and it's only up from here. It's only up from here. We're not going to worry about what everybody else is doing. I tell people all the time, I think I've been asked this question only once. And it's like, who is my competition? No one. What God has for me is for me. I don't care what everybody out here else is doing. I'm just over here doing little old me, okay? And that's the way I move. And I've always moved that way in my career and everything, it just is what it is. I'm a big fan of Bishop Paul Morton. I remember one time he said, your haters can't do nothing with you, and they can't. They really can't. And you have to know that, if you're a follower of Christ and you trust God and you put him first in all things, you don't have to worry about what's going on around you. He's going to give you that armor protection. He's going to make sure, you're good. And then one of the things I think that we can both agree to because we both did follow and join that program with Myron Golden, he talked about, the kind of people that we want to attract, premium people. And
Mhm.
and one of the things I do, John, I pray for what I want. I pray about it and I let God know for the type of people I want him to send to me. And those freeple and cheapo, they're not my people. And I thank God for that. And he don't send them, and I really appreciate that. I really do.
That's so good. Yeah. Myron Golden, that's where we actually met. His program itself, I forget, the Make More Offers Challenge, right? We met at the Make More Offers Challenge, and it's an amazing sort of thing that he's doing and that we're doing in our own little perspective ways is like bringing community together,
Right.
right? Bringing people and there's a verse in the Bible, I forgot the exact one, but like you're the salt of the earth and and the light of the world, right? And so that's sort of what you're doing is like it sounds to me like you're attracting the right people through, putting your trust in God
Right.
and allowing him to work through you and shine through you the values and the person you are to attract the right people. Would you
Right.
say that's accurate?
Absolutely, absolutely. I believe everything I touch should reflect the excellence of God, and we got to make sure that we're walking in that, and that's what people see. And I think it's been amazing. I've connected with a lot of people through the faith. I've had people, connect with catering and talk to me about God, and things of that nature, and I'm able to share that with them. So I do know that it's definitely is a ministry for sure, and I just love what I'm doing, and I love to keep him involved in it. And I think with him in it, it just makes things much smoother and easier. and it just don't feel like hard and doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, it feels, yeah, it's like when you know you're in your purpose, you know the purpose has been provided you to you by God, and you know you're moving and walking, following Him. There
Absolutely.
is sort of like no, there's no like there's you're walking with the creator of the game of life. You're
Absolutely.
walking with everything you got, and so I love that. So help me, understand like if you have a lot of experience, right? And I would be sort of remiss if I didn't ask. It from your experience, being in the army and now, being an entrepreneur and even in the medical field. But do you have any certain advice for someone who's looking to either start a catering business or looking to really start and serve based on what God has called them to do? How would you recommend somebody to go start something new?
Uh, My faith has taught me that fear cannot lead my decisions. So they have to understand that you gotta leap out their own faith and don't let fear hold you from doing what you want to do. And it will. It will, because a lot of times, fear creep up and you're like, can't do it, but you just have to trust God in the process, and you just have to leap out there and do it, and and believe that you can do it. Set some goals. You may not meet every goal, but guess what? Keep going, because most of the most successful people will tell you they failed miserably and probably had about 2 or 3 businesses to go bankrupt. One of the things we gotta keep in mind that it's not gonna always be easy to get there. God didn't say it wouldn't be trial and tribulation, but he said he'll be there every step of the way. So we gotta keep that in mind. If you believe that with everything in you and you believe that in your heart, you will be fine. Just, trust the process and believe in yourself, and get out there and do what you need to do, and make sure you are operating in your gift, and make sure you've had this conversation with God and this is truly what you're supposed to be doing. Because a lot of times we get this idea, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it, and that's great, but that doesn't mean it's your calling.
Okay. No, 100%. I mean, it sounds like it's a mindset thing as well as like trusting in God to lead you in every step of the way. Because that I remember when I started my business, and you likely have a story, is like you start and you don't know what the heck you're doing, you don't know where you're going, you literally just jump. And then you have to rely on God, or you just like trust in the Lord that He's gonna provide. And truly He does. Like for me, like, and maybe for you as well, is like everybody who's a client or who has been working with me, who has worked with me, God has brought them to me in some sort of way or fashion. That doesn't mean I'm not working. That doesn't mean I'm not planting the seeds, but it does mean that I trust in the Lord to provide for my business. Would you say that that's the number one strategy that you've followed as well? Or is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head when you said it's a mindset. When you have the right mindset, that drives professionalism, that drives excellence, attention to detail, just making sure you're just crafting things the way you want to see them go in your business. And I think that is very important. And God, He will be with you every step of the way. And yes, I do believe that He does provide the people that you need. And that's the prayer that you ask Him, not to send you the people that need you. And He'll, grow your business that way. I really don't advertise catering. We don't, but we get so many requests, all the time. That, one time it was ridiculous. We was turning away. It was like, oh my God, so it was like, it was like an overflow big time. So I know what you mean when you say, you don't necessarily, not that we're being lazy, but I think that when you establish yourself and with your experience and you build your reputation, I think that it's okay to brag about what God is doing, spread that good news so people know that that's on the fence and scared about should they try. Give it a try. If it don't work, so what? Try again. And I think that's the biggest thing, just having that faith to just keep going and not make excuses and fear, and don't blame nobody else for whatever you haven't done in this life. You still got time to do it. You still got time.
Mm.
Want to go to college, get a degree, go get one. I did all that. Been there, done all that, So, you can do whatever you want in this life. And you just have to know that. That's a mindset. You got to have drive, determination, and you just have to have that get up. That it got to be that thing that wakes you up in the morning and keeps you up at night to let you know that, hey, you need to be doing something different. And that's what it does.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful message. I love that. I love that. You've been a mother throughout this whole process. Is that right?
Absolutely.
how did that go? Like, because a lot of people may be watching or may be in that situation where, they're like, okay, well, I have my family, then I have my business, then I have my faith. It sounds like you've potentially mixed and matched your way through.
Oh
How did
yeah.
that look?
Oh, yeah, you absolutely have to balance it because keep in mind, when I raised my $2, like I said, I was a supervisor in the lab. So I've always had 30, 40, 50, 60 employees under me doing catering on the side, all this good stuff, trying to be a mom, trying to be a wife. And one of the things was nice was creating this legacy with the girls. And they were in the business, they were learning how to do things. Both of them are excellent cooks now, so it made a difference. But I think I might have ran them both off because they both live out of state. So so they both then they come in the holidays and the big events and they'll help us out and things of that nature. But definitely it played a part. They was able to be a part of the business. We was able to put them on payroll in the business, and I think it taught them the value of a dollar, so to speak. And then, now they're both out there, live on their own. They're successful and they're doing what they need to be doing. And I think it all makes a difference. And I think the whole time they may not tell you this, but they're my biggest fans. I know that. And so it makes me feel good. But yeah, definitely anyone that have kids, like, get them involved. They love it. Get them involved. Almost any business, and I talk to people all the time that doing business totally opposite of what I'm doing, and they'll tell you that they got their kids involved. They put them on payroll, and stuff like that, and just building that legacy of work and hard work and what hard work looks like. It
Yeah.
pays off. It is provided for us a nice life. We travel, we get to kind of do the things we want to do. We don't really worry about how much it costs, and things like that. And I think that's a good thing. We make sure, he provides all our needs. And like they say, he also get desires our heart, and God no desire my heart is to travel. So that is definitely a desire. And he knows that. And he's always made sure, we could always have that work life balance, because you want both. I tell people, unfortunately, we see so often people that are in business struggling to stay afloat, Jonathan. They just don't have that extra money to enjoy life. And you got to go unplug and refill, fill that cup back up so you can come back and pour into other people, and things of that nature. And you're not going to be able to do that. And I think I love doing it because that's my self care for my clients. My clients, most of them know that we provide, just great quality service. We've had clients tell us we offer an experience, and that's what we want. And I think being able to go off, regroup, relax, all that good stuff, it makes us come back. We come back bigger and better every time. We had a few little time off the holidays, end of the year, came back first of the year, January 3rd was our first wedding. Jonathan, probably before I can get back to the venue and catering kitchen, we had 2 5-star reviews coming across the thing. So, so it makes a difference when you relax and regroup. And that's what I love about catering. We do something that restaurants can never do. That 5, 7 day a week thing that they're doing, it just don't always come over well. The ones that are really good, they aim to be consistent. But how many times have we went to a restaurant, ordered the same dish and it tasted different? So,
Mm.
we offer consistency in catering, and we try to make sure that we tailor all our attention to your event for that day so that it does come across fresh and quality and professional and good presentation like it should be. And and people, we love the fact that our clients come back and say we exceeded their expectations. And that's what the goal is. The goal is not to give you what you paid us for. The goal is to give you more than that.
Wow. I love that. So okay, so that was a lot. That was a lot of greatness because I understood through that small little interaction that you put your heart and soul into each client, each service, each, event that you do
Absolutely.
because people are trusting you with the thing that brings people together, the food, right, which is super important. People are trusting you to provide that service and it sounds like you put a lot of work and a lot of effort into that consistency.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's important to build that rapport and that trust, in the community and with people. And those people are talking about you outside of, that event. And that's what you want. You want people to say good things, not that, "Oh, that food was terrible, that you had her food, you want good responses. A good friend who's an entrepreneur himself, once said to me, he said, what you want is people talking about you when you're not in the room. And I know people are talking about us when I'm not in the room, and that
Mm.
we taking this catering company to a place where when our name come up, it's a positive response. not negative. And I explained that to people. That was one of the reasons why we kind of tried to start, we started that master class. And we just want people to just understand that, you gotta put work into what you're doing. You gotta make sure you're checking all the boxes, in this thing, whether it's customer service, that food is not just about good food. Yeah, people want good food, absolutely, but they want good customer service. They want good presentation. They want you to show up in it with an appearance, not, looking like you just walked in off the street. That it's a look, it's a vibe, and
Yeah.
we bring, we make sure that we are checking all the boxes. So it's not just one thing, it's all things. And that's what a lot of people in business, period. That's why one of the things in the master class people called me was like, is it just for caterers? No. Business is business. And you need to be able to do good business and that's what I tell people all the time. So, like I said, this weekend is a master class, so we're gonna see. The weather
There
look
you
like
go.
it's gonna be very cooperative, and that's okay. And we probably gonna have to push it, to a little bit later in the year, probably in March or something like that. But we'll see.
Yeah. Hey, God willing, you know? So, it's very rare that, like I mentioned before, it's like, it's very rare that I get to talk to somebody who's worked for such a long period of time in the same business, 16 years in the same business. Over those last 16 years, can you help break down like, when you're starting a brand new business, people say, oh, it's, you don't profit. It's really hard in the beginning,
Yeah.
but you've been doing it for over a decade now. Has there been certain like patterns of like, wow, we really hit our stride year 5, or we really, started to make these milestones after this amount of time? What are your thoughts?
I think all of it is just about how much time you can put into it. Like I said, when we started, we weren't doing it on a full scale at all because I was working. So it's basically very small for us starting out. Just putting not making a ton of money, but I think maybe the first few years, maybe $30,000 for the year, nothing
Sure.
exciting or anything, but it was the type of money we was able to save and put aside. And now I realize that was the plan all along. God knew the plan before you even figured the plan out. And I think that was the plan all along. So then when the time came to purchase, we were in position to purchase, and we purchased at 50% off.
Jeez.
My broker was amazing. She offered 50% of what the asking price was. So I know that that wasn't nothing but divine intervention for him to open that door for me. The vision board, write the vision, make it plain, all that good stuff. A lot of people don't believe in that stuff. I'm sold out. I'm all in when it comes to that stuff. I believe it wholeheartedly. That God is He is real and He is going. He's going to provide your needs if you trust Him and you really believe. 'Cause a lot of people say, "Oh, God going to do it," but you got to really, really believe He's going to do it. And that's the difference. I think, I hear people, we don't play about God in this house. So it, we believe him to do something. We expect him to do it, and a lot of people don't understand that, that's the kind of conversation, I have. I be like, God, what we doing? What we doing? I'm talking to him like I'm talking to you, Jonathan. A lot of
Yeah.
people understand that's the kind of relationship you want to have with him. And I do, even the girls know they call mama, we need to pray about this or because they know that I believe they think I got a beeline to God, but at the same time, and a lot of my friends do, they be like, we need you to pray with us and things like that. But they have the same relation, they can have that same relationship. They just gotta believe it in their heart what they're asking for. And I think a lot of times, John, we be like, I want to own a business and I want to do this and I want to do that. But are you truly all in about it? Because God
Mm.
knows our heart. So we can speak whatever we want, Jonathan, out of our mouth. But
Mhm.
if it ain't registered and connected, in your head, mind, and heart don't connect, he knows. So I think that's a lot of times people don't say, because I tell people all the time, they'll say things. I was like, well, say it like you mean it. Say it like you mean it. Act like you believe it. God would do it. And that's, I think that a lot of times, I hear people say, well, do you believe him to do it? And that's where we're at a lot of times with the business. We got to put him first. We got to put him first. Big decisions, pray about it first, That's something I
Mhm.
do, I go in prayer, and then, me and my husband sometimes we'll be praying and he was like, well, God, it's your will. I'd be like, dang, tell God what we want. Sometimes, I don't want to hear if it's his will. It might not be his will, but God, I want this. So I need him to say, and you have to be specific. I tell people all the time,
Mm.
you got to be specific about what you're asking for. People are not always specific. And that's another thing. We got to keep that in mind. God, Be specific, because I'm gonna tell you, I am a victim of not being specific. I am a walking testimony that God has answered probably almost every prayer I have asked for. Okay. And let me
Wow.
tell you, I had to go back and talk to God. I said, okay, God, I know I asked for such and such. I left some things off because guess what? I wasn't specific. And I guess he said, this is what you asked for. So he gave it to me. But guess what? He left some things off, Jonathan. So I'm sitting here laughing because I know what I said. I say something like, "Oh God, I'm in my own TV show. Oh God, I want this. Okay, God, I'm gonna need the money to go with it. Little things like that. Even with the book, I'm talking about the book. I've always said I'm gonna do a cookbook. Okay, guess what? Here you go. Here's your book. Cover is ready. What we doing? One of the things I made sure, I was praying about. So here, God, I said, when this book is released, I needed to be a bestseller, So it's one of those
Mm.
things. So now, I'm truly understanding with this walk with God that I gotta be specific. I gotta tell him what I want, and and he knows my heart. But that's one of the things. We gotta be specific. And I
Wow.
learned that. Look, kind of, I ain't gonna say the hard way, because he's always provided, always been good. And he's always made sure we were good. But I'm like, okay, we gotta make sure we're specifically saying, God, this is what we need. This is what we want. And a lot of people are not doing that. And they think they can do it without them. You can't do it without them. If you think you can, you're gonna figure it out that you cannot. Now, if you want it good, now if you want it to be successful, now if you want it to be easy, not necessarily easy, but smooth. His yoke is
Yeah.
easy. When he's in it, it doesn't feel like work. And that's a lot of people don't get. Even I got clients right now, know that we were swamped in December. I mean, the man was so crazy. I'm like, there's got to be other caterers in the town. That's how mad it was. I was like, OMG. But I guess he said, I set a goal to make a certain amount of money for the year. I guess he said, you said you had a goal here. You didn't finish. Let's do it. And we finished. He made sure of that. So I tell people, it is power in the tongue. You speaking, it will manifest. So make sure what you're saying is what you want.
Wow. That was a masterclass in itself. Like truly, that was just that's the sauce. That's the secret sauce right there. Like get closer to God, be specific, follow him, trust in him. It's just beautiful what you're saying. So thank you.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you'd like to say?
No, thanks for having me on the podcast. It's been an amazing experience. And anytime I get to tell people about good guys, I'm always available for that, Jonathan. I'm excited for you. Congratulations on your podcast. And the title is amazing.
All
Definitely.
glory to God. He gave me the name. Like
Yeah.
I didn't ask for the seat. Trust me. I'm an introvert.
Yeah, you
I'm like,
surprised me. You surprised me when I saw that email. I was like, what's Jonathan doing now? But you're in marketing, so no surprise there. But I appreciate the experience. This is definitely something I thought about. I was like, once I get the book, will I have to do a podcast? All this kind of stuff is bringing in my
wow.
head. And I'm thinking, so now I kind of get an idea, like you said. But you know, I love, pouring into people. One of the things, I try to do is I mentor, the young girls that are on my team. Sometimes, we've had some of the older people, they're set in their ways. They're not trying to be mentors, and it is what it is, and it's okay. But I think with the younger people, I do appreciate that God sends me. I actually got 3 seniors that are graduating on the team.
Wow.
So I'm excited about that, about them. And I think all 3 of them sound like they might stay local. So I was like, okay, good. I can still use y'all. But
There you go.
even if I don't, I hope that they've learned something from just watching what we've done and what we've tried our best to do in excellence. And they've been at a lot of events, they've heard the reviews, and they know. And even this Saturday for the master class, our annual training was going to follow that. So we'll see how that goes. If we don't get the snow and things of that nature. So definitely excited about what God has next. I'm looking at launching a nonprofit called Sisters in Arms, and it's for my
Wow.
fellow women veterans and military active duty that are coming out of the Army that's interested in entrepreneurship.
Wow.
We're
That's amazing.
excited. A lot. That's why I told you I know that God is pulling me. I'm going to be pivoting. From
Yeah.
I gave myself to 55. Now I'm 52 this year, Jonathan. So we're going to see.
There you go.
I'm gonna see if I make it to 55, or God going to push me on further to something further sooner. And I think He is, because He's providing me with the team of people that I need. And I think I have now 3 other caterers that are interested in supporting me in that space.
Wow.
So it's like He's definitely making sure that if I decide to pivot, I can. And I'm excited about that.
That's so amazing. I mean, I can see it from our conversation. Every bit of it, you're planting the seeds, you're building a legacy, and you're glorifying him with the things that you're doing and
Right.
the people that you're bringing together, which is amazing. It's just so cool what you're doing. Awesome. Awesome. My last question to you, since you mentioned it, where's your next destination, your next travel destination?
Actually, our next destination is we're gonna actually fly to San Juan, Puerto Rico
Okay.
on the 12th or 13th. And we're actually taking a Virgin Voyages cruise for the first time. My husband is, for whatever reason, super excited about getting on that cruise because it's an adult only. So that's where we're
Okay.
headed. And it's a Valentine cruise. And it
Oh,
actually is going to places like Aruba, Carousel, and places like that. So we're excited about that. I think the Virgin Islands and stuff like that. So some pretty decent destinations. Couple places we haven't been.
nice. Is there anything on your vision board that you're like, I need to go there?
Not, I guess, not really. There are some places definitely on the bucket list, like Dubai, and
Mm,
we actually just came from Thailand and South Korea to celebrate our 30th anniversary, November last November. So I'm Jonathan, I'm down for whatever. I'll just pretty much travel anywhere just to see it. There's like nothing that like I have to do, but definitely places like, I think it's called Tulum, Mexico. I heard it's really nice if I do something like Mexico, but I'm a big, I like Europe. Definitely team Europe. I know there will be spending, the holidays in Europe and, we'll be gone for about 2 weeks, end of the year. So
wow, there you go.
paid and planned. So we just gonna,
Paid and planned.
yeah, paid and planned and get ready to go and try to and we do try to do it in advance so that like I tell people, you don't feel the financial burden of it as much if you just plan accordingly,
Mm,
get it done. And we're not leaving to the Christmas, but December it's done, it's paid for. So it's one of those things that you gotta balance that budget. Like I tell people, if you balance it right, you can do what you want to do in this life. But you gotta balance it and things that you feel like are that are the things that are burdening you, so to speak. You got to figure out what it is that you need versus your wants.
I love that. I love that. I mean, work hard, play hard, and then you're working even harder when you're refreshed.
Like, absolutely. And like you said, and the business is still going with or without us. And that's what I love.
Mm,
It doesn't stop without us, and that's what the partnership with the other caterers has allowed us to do. And I love that.
that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, there's been so much goodness and good nuggets of wisdom and information that I've got from this episode. I'm gonna have to watch it back myself multiple times here. So yeah, is there anything else that you want to leave us with?
No, just, keep pushing. Whoever's out there with a dream, don't sleep on your dream. Just push, push, push. Whatever you
Push,
need to do
push.
so that dream will manifest, and it will. But you got to put in the work. Faith without work is dead. So I tell people all the
Amen.
time, well, yes, we trust God, but God also expects us to do our part. So always
Yeah,
remember
he'll
that.
steer. We got to row.
Yep. Okay. Yep. You got to do your part. As long as you do your part, he gonna always do his. You show up with your best, he will do the rest.
That's amazing. That's a great way to end this. So, Clarissa, thank you again for being on the podcast, the God's Business Podcast, where we bring entrepreneurs together to talk about how God works in our life and in our business. This has been a pleasure. Thank you again for coming on.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. Take care.
Absolutely.